There is a question nobody ever teaches you to ask. Not in school, not from your parents, not in any self-help book. It is a question most people spend their entire lives running away from. Why do you keep choosing the same people? Why is the love that hurts you the most the one that feels the most real? Why do familiar and destructive smell exactly the same? 3-second pause. Let the question breathe. Carl Jung, one of the greatest explorers of the human psyche, had an answer that will change the way you see every single relationship in your life. He believed we don't fall in love with real people. We fall in love with ghosts. Ghosts we've been carrying inside of us long before we ever met those people. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Today, in this video, we're going to descend into the depths of that idea. We're going to understand what the shadow is, how it projects your pain onto others, and, most importantly, how you can begin to withdraw those projections and set yourself free. If you have ever felt magnetically drawn to someone you knew, deep down, was going to hurt you, this video is for you. To understand why we love the people who destroy us, we first need to understand how Jung mapped the human psyche. Jung believed the mind is not monolithic. It is inhabited by multiple forces, multiple inner characters, and two of those characters are absolutely central to our love lives: the Anima and the Animus. In a man, there exists an inner feminine figure. Jung called her the Anima. She is the synthesis of every experience the man has had with the feminine throughout his life. His mother, his sisters, his first loves, the feminine figures in his dreams. The Anima is not a real woman. She is an inner image, a kind of emotional map of what it means to be loved by a woman. She carries both the most luminous aspects, tenderness, intuition, depth, and the darkest ones, jealousy, possessiveness, seductive destruction. In a woman, there exists the masculine counterpart, the Animus. He represents the synthesis of the masculine in the female psyche, the father, brothers, lovers, the heroes of stories. The Animus also has his light and shadow sides. He can be the wise protector, but he can also be the relentless inner critic, the voice that tells you you're never enough. Here is the central point. When we don't consciously integrate these inner figures, we project them. That means when you meet someone new, you are not actually seeing them clearly. You are overlaying, like a transparency, your anima or animus onto that person's face. That's why the initial rush of attraction can feel so overwhelming. You are not falling in love with a person. You are falling in love with a part of yourself you never knew existed. Think about that for a moment. How many times have you fallen for someone and felt like they were your missing half? That they completed something in you? Jung would say, they didn't complete you. They mirrored you. They awakened a quality that was already dormant inside you. And without realizing it, you began worshiping the mirror instead of seeking that quality within yourself. Projection changes the world into the replica of one's own unknown face. But there is something even deeper than the anima and the animus, something Jung considered the greatest challenge of the psychological life. He called it the shadow. What is the shadow? From very early on, we learn which parts of ourselves are acceptable. Did your anger get you punished? You hid it. Did your sensitivity make you a target? You buried it. Did your ambition make you seem arrogant? You suppressed it. Everything the environment around you, your family, school, culture, rejected in you, got pushed into a part of the psyche Jung called the shadow. The shadow doesn't disappear. It doesn't vanish. It simply stays in the dark and keeps operating unconsciously. Here's a very common misconception. People assume the shadow only holds bad things, our cruelty, our envy, our cowardice. But Jung had a far more nuanced view than that. The shadow also holds gold. It guards qualities you have, but which were rejected by the world around you. Maybe you're an extremely creative person who learned early on that art doesn't pay the bills. So you buried that creativity. Maybe you have an enormous capacity for leadership, but you learned that standing out is dangerous. So you made yourself small. That gold in the shadow is exactly what you will project onto other people. And when you see that quality in someone else, you feel a magnetic pull. Because deep down you are recognizing something that is yours, something that was taken from you by circumstances beyond your control. Jung offered a simple but powerful clue. Pay attention to what triggers you deeply in other people. The person who makes your blood boil, who you simply cannot stand. That person is most likely displaying a quality you have, but have forbidden in yourself. If you're triggered by people who do whatever they want without caring about others, maybe your shadow is holding an enormous desire for freedom you've never allowed yourself. If you're triggered by people who seem too fragile, maybe your shadow is holding a pain you've never allowed yourself to feel. The shadow is that hidden, repressed, mostly inferior and guilt-laden personality whose ultimate ramifications reach back into the realm of our animal ancestors. Understanding this is the first step toward understanding why you love who you love, and why that love sometimes hurts so much. Now that we understand the shadow, we can understand the mechanism it uses to control your love life. Projection. Projection is when you attribute to someone else something that actually belongs to you. It's an unconscious mechanism. You don't choose to do it, it simply happens. The psyche, like a film projector, casts onto the screen of the other person what it cannot see within itself. And here is the thing that changes everything. The more unconscious your shadow is, the more intense your projections will be. When you project your shadow's gold onto someone, you idealize that person. They seem perfect. They seem to have something no one else in the world has. You feel like they complete you, like without them you are less than you should be. This is not love. It is dazzlement by your own unconscious, and the danger is real. When that person inevitably shows their very human imperfections, when the mirror reveals they are not what you projected, the disappointment can be devastating. Because deep down, you weren't seeing them at all. You were seeing yourself. But there is an even more painful kind of projection. It's when you project not your gold, but your wound. When you unconsciously seek out someone who will repeat the pattern of pain you've known since childhood. The son who had an emotionally absent father, and who falls for partners who are never truly present. The daughter who grew up with a critical and relentless mother, and who falls for someone who makes her feel perpetually not good enough. It's not masochism, it's not weakness, it's the unconscious trying in its own twisted way to resolve the original problem. As if the psyche were saying, if I can just be loved by someone exactly like the one who hurt me, the original wound will finally be healed. That logic is flawed, but it is profoundly human, and understanding it is not a reason for shame. It is a reason for compassion, for yourself. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. There's a metaphor that, whenever I encounter it, feels like it captures something words alone can barely reach. Imagine you grew up in a house that was always on fire. Not an explosion, a slow, constant fire. Conflict, neglect, unpredictability, absence. But it was the only house you knew. It was the only warmth you knew. And when you left that house and went out into the world, what did you go looking for? Another fire. Freud called this the repetition compulsion. Jung called it an unconscious pattern. The name matters less than the recognition. We repeat because the familiar is predictable, and the predictable, even when it's painful, feels safer than the unknown. Calm, stable, secure love can feel boring. It can feel like something is missing. You know why? Because for a lot of people, intensity was what felt like love. The adrenaline of jealousy felt like care. A partner's punishing silence felt like seriousness. Unpredictability felt like passion. The nervous system was conditioned to read anxiety as love. There is a pattern that repeats itself in different disguises. First comes the overwhelming attraction, that feeling of, I finally found someone who truly gets me. Then comes the enchantment. Everything seems perfect. The projection is running at full power. Then come the first cracks. The real person starts surfacing beneath the projection. Then comes the suffering. You desperately try to make the projection come back, to fix your partner so they become what you projected. And when that fails, the cycle starts over with someone new. Jung had a clear perspective on this. As long as the unconscious goes unrecognized, it operates as fate. But once it is brought into the light of consciousness, it loses that power. You are not condemned to repeat. At most, you are still asleep. And the difference between fate and conscious choice lives in the moment you decide to look inward. Who looks outside? Dreams. Who looks inside? Awakes. We have arrived at the heart of this video, because understanding the problem is important, but understanding the way out is what actually transforms you. Jung called this process withdrawing projections. It is not an easy process, but it is the most liberating one that exists. What does it mean to withdraw a projection? It means recognizing that what you see in the other person belongs to you, not to blame yourself, not to diminish what you feel, but to reclaim the power you handed over to someone else. When you project your gold onto someone, you become dependent on that person to feel whole. When you withdraw that projection, you recognize, this quality I see in them. It lives in me. Dormant, maybe, but mine. Here is a practical exercise you can start today. Think of someone you felt, or still feel, an overwhelming attraction to, especially if that attraction carried a current of pain. Then ask yourself 3 questions. First, what does this person have that I feel I'm missing? Don't overthink it. Write down the very first thing that comes. Second, when was the last time I allowed myself to have that quality? This question often leads back to childhood memories, moments when that quality was punished or ridiculed. Third, how can I begin to cultivate that quality in myself without needing the other person to give it to me? One crucial detail, Jung was not asking you to reject what's in the shadow. He was asking for integration. The shadow is not your enemy. It is a part of you that was exiled, and it acts in destructive ways precisely because it's in exile, because it was never recognized, because it never had a legitimate place in your life. When you begin to integrate the shadow, to consciously make room for what was in the dark, something shifts in your relationships. You stop needing the other person to carry what is yours. You start choosing people for who they actually are, not for what they represent in your inner theater. And the magnetic pull toward the destructive begins to lose its grip. Not because you become invulnerable, but because you become more whole. There is no coming to consciousness without pain. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. Jung believed that mature love, real love, not projected enchantment, is only possible between 2 people who are each, in their own way, engaged in a process of self-knowledge. Not perfect people, not people who have already arrived, but people who have decided to look, who have decided that the work of knowing oneself is the only work that truly matters. This is love that doesn't need pain to feel real. This is love that doesn't need fire to have warmth. We've reached the end of this video, but not the end of this conversation, because what we explored today is not theory, it's a map of something most people will never see about themselves. The idea that when we fall overwhelmingly in love, what is happening is far bigger than a story between 2 people. It is the unconscious manifesting. It is the shadow asking for attention. It is the psyche trying to complete itself. And now you have something most people don't have, a language for understanding what happens inside you. First, observe. Over the coming weeks, whenever you feel an intense pull toward someone, pause. Ask yourself, what am I projecting here? Second, write. A journal is the most powerful tool for self-knowledge. Write about the qualities you admire in partners. Write about what triggers you. Look for the patterns. Third, have compassion for yourself. You are not weak because you project. You are human. We all project. The difference is in choosing to make it conscious. You are not broken. You are not cursed. You are not condemned to repeat. You are in a process. The most important process there is becoming who you truly are. Jung believed that the entire psychological journey points toward what he called individuation, the process of becoming a complete, integrated, conscious individual. Not a being without a shadow, but a being who knows their shadow and is no longer afraid of it. If this video touched something in you, if it surfaced a memory, a name, a pain you had been avoiding, I invite you to share it in the comments. Not to expose anything you don't want to, but because your story might be exactly the light someone here needs today. In relationships, just as in self-knowledge, we are rarely as alone as we think. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, now is the time. Every video here is a new layer of this map. Leave a like if this video was worth your time. It helps the channel reach the people who need it most. And in the comments, tell me, what is the quality you notice you project onto others the most? In the next video, we're going to explore something few people talk about with real honesty. How the emptiness that grows from projection-based relationships can transform into addiction. Addiction to substances, addiction to approval, addiction to emotional intensity. Jung had a perspective on this that will completely change the way you understand dependency of any kind. Don't miss it.